They struck Kharg? Oh, shit. Footage shows Iranian missile purportedly striking Nevatim air base in southern Israel moments ago, and now chatters are saying we struck Kharg. Oh, no. That is... If... This means the Iranian retaliation will be to strike the Gulf states. This also makes sense. Someone in the Gulf reached out to me literally 10 minutes ago and said that Qatar is actually evacuating certain areas right now. That means that they are going to, if we struck Kharg, that means that they are going to strike back at regional oil refineries. 1 minute ago, Trump, at my direction, United States Central Command struck Kharg Island. Ooh. Okay, maybe they will mine the Strait of Hormuz now. Moments ago, at my direction, the United States Central Command executed one of the most powerful bombing raids in the history of the Middle East and totally obliterated every military target in Iran's crown jewel, Kharg Island. Our weapons are the most powerful and sophisticated the world has ever known, but for reasons of decency, I have chosen not to wipe out the oil infrastructure on the island. However, should Iran or anyone else do anything to interfere with the free and safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, I will immediately reconsider this decision. During my first term and currently, I rebuilt our military into the most lethal, powerful, and effective force by far anywhere in the world. Oh, we are in the fucking end times, dude. Oh, buddy, we done did it now. Oh, buddy, oh boy. Let's go to CNN. Let's see what they're fucking saying. Oh my God, they're talking about fucking sports betting. Jesus Christ. Do we have an Al Jazeera live broadcast? Yeah. Qatar's defense ministry said it intercepted missile attack and evacuations have been carried out. It announced an interception early Saturday. Associated Press journalists in Doha heard explosions consistent with possible interceptions. The ministry said earlier that authorities are evacuating a number of areas as a temporary precaution without identifying the locations.
Media on Al Jazeera.
Can you really bomb a political future into existence?
I don't think that's what we're trying to do. I think the objective here is to destroy the instruments of Iranian state power.
Let me ask you this directly. Is Israel effectively leading U.S. foreign policy?
They want to do a Gaza-like effort on the main power centers in Iran to kill thousands of people.
I mean, this just happened. This just happened.
Upfront tackles the big issues only on Al Jazeera.
Wait, what is on Kharg Island? It's not on the Strait of Hormuz. Why is it important? Kharg Island is the most consequential aspect of Iranian oil transfers. 90% of all of the oil tankers go through Kharg Island. It's an incredibly important part of. It is an incredibly important part of the oil infrastructure that Iran has. Yeah, 90% of oil exports go through the port of Kharg Island. I fear that in the next few hours, Trump is going to throw good money after bad, further digging himself into a self-inflicted hole. We will likely see oil prices beyond anything we have seen. This is a fuck you to China too, by the way. It's not just a fuck you to... This is not just consequential for Iran, especially given the Iranian retaliation. So who knows what will happen. But this is, this is a major escalation. All three Washington, D.C. airports have been shut down. Full ground stops, flights halted. Here, this is analysis from 6 hours ago about why America wants to seize Kharg Island.
Miles off the coast of Iran, called Kharg Island. What is its significance, and why are the US making plans to potentially try and seize it? Hi, my name's Mikey Kay from the BBC's Security Brief, also a former strategic military planner in the British military. So why is Kharg Island so strategically important to the US? Why are the US trying to seize it? Well, this is why. 90% of Iran's export crude oil comes through that island. 90%. And the reason for that is it's effectively a terminal. And the terminal allows very large tankers that can carry up to 85 million gallons of oil to be able to come up to the terminal quite easily and then come back down the Persian Gulf and out of the Straits of Hormuz out to China. China is the main user of Iranian oil. So why else is it important? It's also the economic lifeline to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the IRGC. And if you take that island and you hold it, then you're effectively cutting off their lifeline, their ability to be able to conduct war. Now, there's been a lot of chatter, both in open source intelligence and online, about the Americans drawing up what's called a
this was an American Enterprise Institute plan that they are, I guess,
concept of
initiating.
operations.
Very
CONOP.
stupid.
And a CONOP basically means different courses of action or different ways that the Americans could use their military capability to try and seize that island. So how does that work? Well, we all saw the 160th Night Stalkers in Venezuela. That wasn't just about a helicopter assault operation to pick up Maduro. There were a lot more capability and assets involved. You had suppression of enemy air defense. That's aircraft that effectively can look at the radars of anti-aircraft missiles, and basically as soon as the radar turns on, they can launch a missile off the rail to target that air defense system. You've then got intelligence, so Reapers, MQ-9 Reapers, drones effectively with really sharp electro-optic cameras and forward-looking infrared cameras that need to be able to sanitize the area. And then, of course, you have the helicopters themselves. The helicopters would need to be probably the MH-47 Chinook. That has the biggest range and also can carry the biggest troops. The troops involved would likely be Delta Force, which is the same unit that took part in the Maduro operation. And then you have the MH-60 Black Hawk helicopter. That's more about suppressing enemy fire. It's more about protecting the MH-47s as they take Delta Force and the Special Force operators in to seize the island. So how would that work? Well, it's 140 nautical miles from Kharg Island to the coast of Kuwait. And helicopters generally travel at about 120 knots, which is 2 miles a minute. That makes it a 70-minute transit from the coast of Kuwait to Kharg Island. However,
Urgent warning circulated on RIGC affiliated Telegram channels targeting U.S. tech firms in the Gulf. An urgent warning to the employees of several major U.S. technology companies in the Persian Gulf region. Immediately evacuate your offices. Citizens and residents near to these locations advised to stay away from the surrounding areas. The warning names offices of major technology firms, including Qualcomm, Adobe, Dell Technologies, Intel, Apple, Cisco Systems, Palo Alto Networks, Oracle, Salesforce, Amazon AWS, Microsoft, Google, Alphabet, and IBM in Dubai, Riyadh, Doha, Kuwait City, Manama, and locations in Oman. Employees are instructed to leave their workplaces immediately and avoid gathering near these sites. CNN, Iran is considering letting international oil tankers through trade. Yeah, this was earlier in the day. And then Trump's response to that was to bomb Kharg Island, which once again is a majorly consequential, incredibly important part of Iran's oil.
Ask you about this strike
oil production.
on Kharg Island that the U.S. president announced just a
Iran's
few minutes
going to
ago,
retaliate with fucking
the United States
Iran is going to retaliate through escalation, which means they're going to expand on the targets that they're hitting, and maybe even the Gulf refinery capabilities as well. You will see oil prices go up, and you will understand why this is the nuclear option from the American side.
But Iran, if you look at the map, Iran is really in control of that strait geographically, because some of that strait passes just almost through an indenture in the Iranian map, and they surround it from 3 areas there at that choke point. So they have lots of locations, lots of mountainous and very difficult geographic scenes there, and where they can launch from their attacks. So Kharg is very interesting because most of the Iranian oil is exported from there. But President Trump said that the attack has spared the oil facilities there. So the first stage for them is to weaken the military presence of the Iranians on Kharg Island. It's fascinating that they haven't done that from day one, because it's been almost more than 2 weeks now since the Iranians have been trying to prevent, or working very efficiently to prevent, the passage of oil from the Kharg Island. And that should have been the first target, according to military analysts, if you talk to them. to do this only today. We don't understand why it's done today, not before today. We know that Trump talks bombastically about any strike, and every day Trump says we have decimated Iran's power, military power, missiles and so on, and then the next day Iran is launching heavy missiles on Israel and other targets in the region. That language that Trump used today is not different from the language he's been using every single day: decimation, total obliteration, finishing Iran and so on. But it goes on, Iran goes on launching missiles and defying and fighting.
Mohammed Val in Tehran, thank you. Let's bring in John Holman now, who's standing by in Washington, D.C., for more on what the president had to say about this, because this is an escalation here, John, hitting these military targets on Kharg Island.
He waited for Friday, and the markets are closed.
Yeah, I've just been passing through the post that President Trump put out on Truth Social, the social media site that he prefers. And it seems that although he doesn't say it as many words, he's going to try and use this as a piece of leverage. I think the clue is when he says that he hasn't yet targeted the oil infrastructure on the island. He says that what the United States Central Command did is execute one of the most powerful bombing raids in the history of the Middle East and totally obliterated every military target in Kharg Island. So that's his words, obviously, and it remains unindependently verified. But he says that he hasn't wiped out the oil infrastructure on the island. However, should Iran or anyone else do anything to interfere with the free passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, I will immediately reconsider this decision. So it seems that he's saying, and as you were saying, this is incredibly important, this island. It's been talked about since the start of the conflict because it is Iran's main crude export terminal, and it's responsible for the overwhelming majority of Iran's oil shipments. So from what President Trump is saying there, he's left that oil machinery alone for the moment, but it's undefended. And if Iran continues to obstruct ships going through the Straits of Hormuz, then they're going to do something with that oil infrastructure. So clearly trying to establish some leverage here. Of course, the context is that ships are not going through, in the majority, ships are not going through the Strait of Hormuz at the moment. That strait is more or less controlled by Iran. 1 in 5 of the world's oil barrels usually goes through it, and it's having a huge impact on energy markets across the world and on the United States as a consequence to that. So this is definitely a big play from President Trump.
Yeah, the Strait of Hormuz and the energy infrastructure in it clearly becoming a primary battlefield in this conflict. John Holman, thank you very much for your reporting. Well, John was telling us about the president's Truth Social, but speaking within the last hour, U.S. President Donald Trump said that the war with Iran is not ending anytime soon.
Speaking with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and are your objectives the same in terms of ending the war?
Well, I think they might be a little different, I guess. You know, they're a different country than we are. But he will tell you there's never been a power like the power of the United States.
Do you think the war is likely to last?
I can't tell you that. I mean, I have my own idea, but what good does it do? It'll be as long as it's necessary. They've been decimated. Their country's in bad shape. The whole thing is collapsing. If you read some of the fake news, it's like, oh, they're doing wonderfully. They're not doing wonderfully. They're doing the opposite. They're doing as bad as you can have. I would say this. I won't give you time, but we're way ahead of schedule.
Meanwhile, Iran has launched another round of retaliatory strikes at Israel. Warning sirens have been sounding across the country all through Friday. Israel has intercepted a number of missiles, but falling debris and shrapnel have caused damage and sparked fires in several cities. Let's get more on the Iranian strikes in Israel from Rory Challens, who joins us from Jordan's capital, Amman. Rory, this is now into the 43rd or 46th way.
Bannon happened to say this shit.
Scott Bessent just with the Wall Street Journal gave an interview.
All Chinese oil should be stopped, seized, or sent to the bottom of the Gulf of Oman. I mean, Steve Bannon is irrelevant.
Are going to continue to hit neighbors like UAE, where I am now, until you back down.
Yeah. So I don't know that this is going to be the thing that pushes them over. This is not their only oil part of their major part of their oil infrastructure there. It's an important one, but it's not the only part of the program. So I don't know if this is going to be enough. I mean, again, it is a very serious threat that I imagine that the regime there is going to take seriously, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. The Strait of Hormuz is a extremely powerful chess piece for Iran to have.
Courtney Cuby, Garrett Hake, and Keir Simmons, all for us tonight. We thank you. As the war rages on overseas tonight, we're following those 2 violent attacks here at home, both being investigated as possible acts of terror. The chilling new video tonight shows the suspect in the Michigan synagogue ramming, buying $2,000 worth of fireworks just 2 days before the attack. And tonight we're learning that suspect.
Okay, let's get
This happened today. There was at least 2 earlier on that again struck at central Israel, and we were hearing of damage in Shoam, which is near Ben.
New message from IRGC. Yeah, I already covered this. Yeah, they gave a warning to all the American tech companies in the region.
Was lodged in the road, and emergency services were having to deal with that situation. And there was also damage reported in Holon and Yehud. So, yeah, it's been a busy day in Israel for these Iranian missiles coming in, as we have seen multiple days over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Rory, and as they deal with those incoming Iranian missiles, there is also, of course, the offensive
Is
that's
this
happening
why your replies have been
in southern
immaculate
Lebanon
since
from
yesterday?
northern Israel. What can you
Israeli
tell us
data
about
center got hit
what's
by Iran
happening
and
there
not a
right
single blue check mark flood under any big tweet.
Yeah, well, this is a 2-front war for Israel at the moment. It started off just against Iran,
is that
of course.
real?
And
I
then
haven't been
a
looking
couple
at
of
my
days
replies. I don't think that's real.
Into the war, rockets came across the border from Hezbollah in Lebanon. And so now Israel is looking at expanding the ground offensive that it has launched against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. It's given evacuation warnings to anyone south of the Litani River. It's now expanded that evacuation to the next river system up from the Litani, basically pushing further and further away from the Lebanon-Israeli border. We are hearing that there are going to be new reservists called up, and that ground offensive is going to be pushed further and further into Lebanon. They're talking about into the heart of Lebanon. Now, the talk in Israel at the moment is that this is not going to be a short conflict. They're talking about how this is now going to be at least going as far as Passover next month. It could go further than that. The expectation is that the conflict with Iran might well be wrapped up sooner than the conflict against Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the time frame for that is looking pretty long term, and that of course has impacts on the home front in Israel, where these rockets are landing pretty much round the clock in these northern communities. The hope that those northern communities have in Israel is that as Hezbollah is pushed further away from the border, the rocket fire diminishes.
Rory Challens live in Amman, Jordan. Thank you, Rory. Across the Gulf, several countries say they've intercepted.
Bro, this is so funny. It's like when this shit happens, like people come in here and they're like, Trump bombed Kharg Island. Yeah, I know, man. I know.
Were killed after shrapnel from a drone interception fell in the Suhar Governorate. Another drone attack damaged fuel tanks at the port of Salalah. Saudi Arabia's defense ministry says its forces destroyed drones heading towards the Sheba oil field. In Bahrain, civil defense teams say they brought a fire under control after an Iranian strike hit fuel storage tanks there. Malik Traina is live for us here in Doha. So, Malik, what can you tell us about these latest strikes?
We're monitoring the situation.
As these alerts came in.
Well, about an hour ago, the Ministry of Interior said that it was evacuating specific areas in Doha. Shortly after that, we got an alarm on our phone saying that there was a threat coming in, and to shelter in place, stay away from windows. The Al Jazeera Arabic camera just beside us in the sky saw the missile coming in and it being intercepted, a small explosion. It just goes to show you how this conflict is escalating. I mean, you talked about the 2 people that were killed in Oman, the debris that we saw from a drone in Dubai earlier today, in Bahrain. I mean, none of the Gulf countries have been spared from the retaliation attacks from Iran. But as Rory was saying, that this, Israeli officials are saying this could be a prolonged conflict. What we're hearing from President Trump saying, as long as necessary, or Iranian officials, this is what people do not want to hear in this region. People here want the situation, they want de-escalation, and they want an end to this wave of violence.
They do, Malik, and it appears as though they are still trying to figure out exactly how to do that. The Emir of Qatar spoke with the Sultan of Oman earlier today, and once again, the Gulf countries are trying to put up a unified front to try to end this aggression, but it doesn't appear that they're having any luck.
Well, I mean, this is what they're trying to do. You know, everyone's being impacted.
I just saw a clip of you going in a veteran. I just want to say you're a piece of shit. Hope you choke on that food, fat ass.
Sultan of Oman.
Your mom is choking on my penis tonight.
Particularly Iran's brutal aggression, and the two stress the importance
just
of
like your
de-escalation
girlfriend did
and prioritizing
when you deployed.
dialogue to enhance security in the region. And that's what everyone across the region, across the Gulf, want. You know, they want wise minds to come to the negotiating table to discuss de-escalation and dialogue so that this violence will soon come to an end.
Malik Traina, live for us here in Doha. Thank you, Malik. An Israeli strike on the Lebanese city of Sidon has killed at least 8 people. The attack targeted a residential building on Friday. Blast debris also damaged surrounding buildings. Lebanon's health ministry says 9 others were wounded. And as these attacks continue, Hezbollah chief Naim Qassem says the armed group is fighting an existential battle with Israel.
We will stay strong on the battlefield, regardless of the sacrifices. We are ready until the end. Don't worry about us. Don't think that we will retreat because we are hurt. We will not retreat because our presence is at stake. This is an existential battle, not a limited or simple one.
Heidi Pett is live for us in Beirut. And Heidi, it is the people in Lebanon that are bearing the brunt of this conflict. As you reported,
he said Israel is trying to spark a civil war inside of Lebanon with the Lebanese army fighting against Hezbollah. They won't do that. The Lebanese army has already refused to fight against Hezbollah. They literally came out and said, why the fuck would we do that? We're not gonna serve the interests of a foreign invader to fight against our own citizens.
103 of them are children, and there are more than 1,900 people wounded. But as you mentioned, just in the last hour or so, we got an update from the Ministry of Health about just one strike in a village in the south called Burj Kalawiya. A primary healthcare center was hit, and they say that those 12 people killed, they are doctors, nurses and paramedics. They say that that is an initial toll. They are still searching for some of the people missing in just that one strike. And so, you know, these countrywide updates, they get issued once a day by the Ministry of Health, but you can see how deadly some of these individual airstrikes have been, not just across the south, but of course we are seeing airstrikes hitting across the capital. There were 4 in the southern suburbs of Beirut today, and in the early hours of dawn, there was an attempted assassination strike in an area far outside the southern suburbs. In fact, in a part of Beirut called Burj Hammoud in the northeastern suburbs. It has a largely Armenian Christian population, as opposed to, you know, Israel says that it is targeting Hezbollah, which has this traditional Shia support base. But as we have seen and as we have been reporting on for at least a week now, these strikes are not just confined to the areas of the country where you would ordinarily find Hezbollah. And so that has made people very afraid. It's raising the level of community tensions. We've had drones and jets flying low and loud over the capital for at least 48 hours now. And so the level of fear here is really rising.
And made all the more difficult with hundreds of thousands of people on the move. Heidi, what can you tell us about the military campaign in the south of Israel pushing north into Lebanon? Where does that stand?
So we've seen them expanding these forced displacement orders that they have been issuing. In the last 24 hours, that has been extended. So previously it was just south of the Litani River. Now it has been expanded to the Zahrani River. So stretching, you know, sometimes up to nearly 50 kilometers north of the Israeli border. And the fear here among the population, people in the south and all over the country, is that this will signal an expansion of the Israeli ground campaign in the south. Now, we know, you know, they've been making small attempts, small advances, small incursions towards various villages and locations all along the southern border, sort of pushing in, testing the waters, taking positions. They have at times been engaged by Hezbollah, who have been firing rockets and anti-tank.
Breaking. 5 U.S. refueling planes struck and damaged at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, according to Wall Street Journal's reports. An Iranian missile strike hit Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, damaging 5 U.S. Air Force refueling planes on the ground. The aircraft were damaged but not destroyed, and no one was killed in the strike. This brings the total of at least 7 U.S. refueling planes lost or damaged recently. Yep. They're not fully destroyed, right? So not 60 million, but at least another couple million there. Fantastic. Remember, each refueling plane is $60 million a pop.
When the aircraft get there, it's not like they're dropping off and then they're returning straight away. They would have to drop off, and then the MH-60s would likely go into what's called racetracks and orbits. Now, they would be there to lay down suppression of enemy fire in case there was Iranian Guard Corps on the island that were looking to defend it. So all in all, with a 70 nautical mile transit to Kharg Island and a certain amount of loiter time, let's call it 40 minutes, and a 70 nautical mile transit back, that's 3 hours in the air. So we're now looking at refuel options. While there is an airbase, or certainly a runway on the island, there would be fuel at that airbase. But if I'm IRGC and I know the Americans were coming, I would probably contaminate that fuel. So as a US operational commander, I wouldn't trust it. But there is another option. Both these helicopters, the MH-47 and the MH-60, they have the ability to air-to-air refuel. What do the Iranians have that could potentially defend that island? Well, conventionally, they've got ballistic missiles and they've got anti-shipping missiles. But the problem with ballistic missiles is that you don't want to cause collateral damage to the oil export infrastructure on Kharg Island. The Iranians are the masters at asymmetric warfare, asymmetry. So they don't want to destroy things, they want to degrade things. They want to draw this out for as long as possible. And they're using a low cost-benefit ratio. And what that means is that their equipment is very simple and it's mass produced, and they can produce it easily. So in terms of an asymmetric threat, what does Iran have? Well, it's got what's called go-fast. They're fast attack boats, fast attack craft. You might even see 2 people on a jet ski, one of them driving and one of them with a rocket-propelled grenade on the back. The point being is that they're hard to target and there can be lots of them. What else does it have? Well, it's got the Shahed 136 drone. That is ubiquitous. The Iranians are thought to have over 50,000 of these Shahed 136s. Once again, not hard to target as a singleton, but when you put them up in swarms, it can overwhelm air defenses. And then you've got mines. The problem with mines is that the Iranians have a lot of them. They're not particularly sophisticated, but what they do is they cause a massive problem for any US maritime patrol vessels coming into the area. And why is that? Well, because as soon as the Iranians say that they've mined Kharg Island, it's then up to the US to prove that the Iranians haven't. And that takes a lot of time, manpower, and resource. The other thing as well is you've got tidal currents inside the Persian Gulf. So even if the US could clear a certain area of the ocean through mine clearance using mine hunters, the currents will then bring other mines back into that area. So there is actually no way on the map of being able to discern and protect a certain area where US vessels can go through. So does this idea of the US assaulting and seizing Kharg Island bring in other players? Now, we already know that China are providing large cargo aircraft that have been coming into Iran post Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025. What they've been bringing into Iran, we don't know. But there are ideas that it could be bringing in ballistic missile capability, surface-to-air missile capability, anti-shipping capability, and also radar systems that aren't as vulnerable to those suppression of enemy air defense aircraft than we think. So they're certainly supporting Iran right now. We know that the US is trying to degrade and destroy Iran's ability to make military capability, its defense industrial base. So if it can seize Kharg Island, does it have the capability to defend it without damaging the infrastructure? And if it does, what is that going to do to global oil prices? And what's the potential for other actors, such as China, to get involved?
I know. It's crazy. I'm not here. I know. Well, we've gone up the escalation ladder now. While we were having this conference, these brainstorms are getting funnier every day. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. So let's talk about the escalation trap. So Robert Pape is the guy, right? Robert Pape is that dude. He is the guy who, if I'm not mistaken, coined it. And he had an interview with, I think, Breaking Points as well. Trump is trapped in an escalation nightmare. This is from a day ago with 800,000 views. Let's take a look.
Pape. He is a professor of political science at the University of Chicago, but he is also the author of The Escalation Trap, which is a Substack where there will be a link down in the description. All of you should go and subscribe right now. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, sir, you are an expert, particularly in air power and in what you call the escalation trap. You studied, I think, every U.S. bombing campaign going back all the way to World War II, and you've talked
World War I.
World War I.
My book, Bombing to Win, goes back to World War I. I've spent years teaching for the U.S. Air Force, conventional targeting strategy in particular. I have spent 20 years modeling the bombing of Iran. So
this video was not great. Wait, why? I just published a new essay in Foreign Affairs with an uncomfortable argument. Escalation in Iran war may actually be strengthening Iran. Iran's strategy is horizontal escalation, widening the conflict to shipping, energy markets, and regional partners. That shifts pressure onto the U.S. and its allies. History shows this is how stronger powers get pulled into wars they can't control. Some historians argue American power ultimately restores control. My research suggests escalation often traps great powers instead.
this is something I know quite a bit about. I also study economic sanctions, terrorism. So all of that is why I built the escalation trap, because those frameworks I've been using for so long for chiefs of staff of the Air Force, for White Houses and so forth, I thought really time to bring them to everybody.
Right, which is why you're such an important guest for us. And we do have some latest news before we get into some of your theory about the escalation.
He's the #1 air autist, bro.
Trap we want your reaction to.
Plain
Guys,
autist.
let's go ahead and put D1 up there on the screen. We have now seen an expansion of Iran declaring that U.S. and Israeli economic banking interests in the region are targets. We have seen this now repeatedly, sir, where we've moved from initial military targets to then the striking of either civilian infrastructure by the United States or Israel inside of Iran, now an expansion to the banking sector. So it does appear as if your theory about escalation and air power continues to spiral as this war now enters what's its 13th day now so far. So your reaction to this particular piece?
Yeah, this is confirmation of what I've been saying. So when states try to use air power alone to topple regimes, it has never, and I'm choosing my words carefully, never worked in over 100 years. And we've tried.
Okay, but like, even though two University of Chicago professors, both Mersheimer and Robert Pape, and numerous other analysts have said that, and numerous historians have said that air dominance alone and air warfare alone has never actually successfully yielded regime change. What do some random America-loving, America hoorah dipshits have to say on the internet? Because these guys are, what do they know? They've fucking written books about this. Lame, gay, woke. I'm illiterate, and I listen to Twitch streamers instead.
Many, many times. I'm glad to go through the cases, but what you get is often this lashback effect that you're not prepared for because you're overconfident. You think you're going to win quick and decisively, so you don't prepare for the worst cases. And now the worst cases are coming, and so we're always behind. Now, what Iran is specifically doing in this lashing back is a horizontal escalation concept. It's actually a concept called parallel attack that we developed in the 1990s in the Air Force to use with precision targeting. And so with precision targeting, and they have precision drones, so we're effectively seeing two precision air campaigns collide for the first time in history. So their precision air campaign against us is parallel bombing at the same time, multiple nodes, not one at a time like we did in World War II. They're hitting multiple nodes in a...
Nah, gang, you're wrong, bro. You don't know your shit, gang. Yeah, this guy doesn't either. Gangy, have you not thought about how America, the big bad, is actually, they have a contingency. They plan it out. What, you think America didn't plan this out? It takes time, gang.
They're treating their enemy as a system, like we taught in the 90s to treat others as a system. You see, this is what their intel has been scooping up. They've been learning from us and studying how to do this. And now what they're doing is they're widening that horizontal escalation and those nodes, because the more nodes you can attack at the same time in parallel, the more system shock you produce. So what you are seeing is Trump has triggered a lashing back that is now producing system level shock. This is one of the things I explained. And that system level shock is not just in Iran. It's not even just in the region. It's now going global. And so this is really probably going to go down as the most disastrous air campaign in history. We're not quite there yet, but we're heading to major system shock, and the panic that everybody's talking about with Strait of Hormuz. This is just the beginning here. You see, there's no control. The biggest thing I want to say, and then I'll stop, is that we've lost control of escalation. You see, one of the things I'm trying to explain in these writings is that there's the illusion the attacker has control. And now you see, each time President Trump says he's about to stop the war, nobody listens anymore. Prices are going up. Nobody's paying attention, because we all now know, whether we say it or not, he's losing control more and more to Iran, and also more and more to the system shock. You see, actors are going their own way, and that's part of the system level shock that is occurring.
Well, let me get your reaction to some of what President Trump is specifically saying, because he paints a very different portrait, I would say, than what you're painting here for us, Professor. Put D2 up on the screen. He spoke with Axios. He told them in a phone interview yesterday, the war with Iran will end soon because, quote, there is practically nothing left to target. Little this and that. Anytime I want it to end, it will end, he said during the 5-minute call. What is your reaction to his presentation of how this is all going?
Well, this is what I call...
It's so crazy that the U.S. Department of State has ordered non-emergency U.S. government employees and U.S. government employee family members to leave Oman due to safety risks. It's saying to me that we just keep literally prodding. And then we go, oops, hey, time to get out now. How are they going to get out? How is it safe to escape Oman right now? Shouldn't you have evacuated before you decided to hit the fucking the escalation trap? It's so fucking stupid. We've done it. We've done it over and over again for the past 13 fucking days. Every goddamn day there's a new thing. Every day. It's crazy. Oh, how could they have done this? How could they have closed the Strait of Hormuz? It's like, yeah, well, that's the one thing that they can do. Of course they're going to do it.
The victory narrative, but it's meeting escalation reality. And the reality is that he's one actor in the system now, but Iran is another actor who's actually driving the escalation pretty strongly. So if he's want to shut this war down, he's got to shut down the attacks on Iran. Well, he's already tried to break Iran. That's not working. So what's he going to give Iran to get them to stop? You see, he had a deal on the table the Friday before he started the bombing. he can't, I'd be very surprised and go back to that deal now. And then on top of that, imagine he could even get the Iranians to come back to a third round of negotiators. Keeping in mind, we've killed the previous negotiators twice now. But keep in mind, let's say he pulls that out of the, how's he going to get Israel to stop killing the leaders the next time? You see, so is he going to slap sanctions on Israel and say, you kill more Iranian leaders? So he's got, and these are just, and I haven't even talked about the Gulf states and others and Russia. Oh my goodness gracious. So as this has become a system level problem, those actors multiply who have control, and increasingly more control than the United States. So just imagine, I just named Iran, Israel, and Russia, that he has to get to call this thing off. How's he going to do that exactly? What's the plan here?
Any idea what might be Iran's step on the escalation ladder? I mean, they've already said it. They're going to expand their targets to like American tech companies, and they're going to start bombing like office buildings of American tech companies. I'm actually surprised that they're not retaliating by hitting refineries at all. I guess they still want to be they still want to be a regional actor at the end of the day. But who knows? Yes, they struck. That was before Kharg. I thought that was after Kharg, but maybe it was before. But these sorts of, I mean, yeah, I think it was because Doha released an emergency, like they did an emergency call and emergency evacuation even before they hit Kharg, or before we found out that they hit Kharg. So I guess their escalation in this situation would be to strike back at refineries, maybe some more American oil tankers that are stuck in the region, something like that. Of course, the problem is like you can't hit oil infrastructure of the United States, really. Because it's in the fucking United States. So all they can do is strike back at a piece of American capital.
Again, this is victory narrative. We're in now the midst of escalation reality. And that victory narrative, we're just going to find fewer and fewer people paying any attention. They may listen. Trump loyalists may say they verbalize it, but that's like as if. You see, it's not real. And we all know that because the prices are going up. And then when the price of the gas is going up, everybody's going to know victory narrative is meeting escalation reality.
Very, very true. So let's turn to.
Yeah, also, the markets are going to scream. Yeah, that's why they did it literally after market close on Friday, by the way. You know, if you're confused as to the timing of why we hit Kharg, you know, it's because it's Friday. It's Friday afternoon, markets close, boom, we hit Kharg. He's trying to soften the impact of, they took Kharg Island. I don't think they took Kharg Island. They just struck it. And even if they take, quote unquote, take Kharg Island, it's going to be impossible to hold Kharg Island. But I suspect that the reason why they're hitting it is because they want to soften their approach. They're hitting it ahead of time, and then maybe they're going to deploy troops there. But I don't think they have enough. I don't think they have enough troop deployment thus far to be able to go and take Kharg Island. There's also people living on Kharg Island.
To some of your own points here about the risk, guys. Can
I don't know
put
if
his
they've been
slideshow
evacuated,
D4
probably not.
up there on the screen. So you start with multiple risks that we are now seeing. Energy shock, about 20% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. If that flow is disrupted, even partially, the economic
8,000 people that live on Kharg Island.
Shock would hit, obviously, the entire globe. Energy markets watching that. Risk number 2 is horizontal escalation, which I believe you've just talked about. Risk 3 is global infrastructure vulnerability. Risk 4 is military and economic strain. And risk 5 is strategic distraction. Can you just break some of that stuff down for us so we can get into it?
Yeah, so what you are seeing is not this disaster that is unfolding is multidimensional. Now, we've had disasters in the past, but they have been more uni or single dimensional. The reason I'm laying this out in threads here is because the threads allow us to see the different dimensions of the risk, and they're dimensions like a layer cake that are intersecting in real time, you see. And it's becoming, and the point on, you've laid out the risk, and I'll just mention the point on the distraction. As the risks come together, they overload us. We get overwhelmed. Well, that's why I put out these frameworks in the escalation trap and then tie them to the events that are occurring. Because as I have, over the years, I started to develop these when I taught for the U.S. Air Force, because I saw that in war, in crisis, people are overloaded. And that's when the frameworks, believe it or not, become the most important, because they need those to make sense of this complex chaos. Otherwise, they're just bouncing all around, you see. So what you're seeing with that distraction is one of the most difficult challenges right now. It's not just that we have a lot coming in our Twitter feeds, our X feeds. That's not quite it. It's that there's multi-dimensions. So let's break them apart.
Okay, I get why you guys are saying this was not the best video. It's a little, it's a bit confusing and hard to follow. Maybe for me, I'm stupid, but anyway, I don't know where it'll go for the time being. This guy kind of mogs you, but here, let's get back to Mersheimer.
As I said, you could be in a global recession or a global depression, and people talk about that possibility all the time. And I want to be clear here. I'm not arguing, Chris, that this is going to happen. And in fact, I think that once it becomes clear that we're heading in that direction in a serious way, to put it in slightly different terms, once it becomes clear that we're heading for the edge of the cliff, I think the Trump administration will pull back. I think that President Trump and his lieutenants, who are not the world's greatest strategists, will understand clearly that we have to be very, very careful here because of what the consequences would be.
Let's talk about Russia and China. There have been reports, not surprising, that Russia is providing intelligence, maybe China too, to the Iranians, help with drone technology. This is, of course, what we have done against Russia in the war in Ukraine. Maybe you can just speculate a little bit on their role and the consequences for Russia and China.
Well, the first thing we should just talk about is the incentives that the Chinese and the Russians have to help Iran. And the fact is they have huge incentives, both of them, to help Iran and to do everything they can to make sure that the United States suffers a humiliating defeat in Iran. The United States is a mortal enemy of both Russia and China. And I believe that Putin and Xi Jinping fully understand this. I believe they don't say that publicly for diplomatic reasons. They're smart enough not to advertise just how.
Bro, Trump will get assassinated before he ends this war. I think the forces that are capable of conducting an assassination like that internally are the very same forces that are actually, let's just say, very excited at the prospect of destabilizing Iran, even if it destroys the global energy markets. Okay? Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's the same people, so I don't think they will be doing that anytime soon. If you want to think about it in terms of like the deep state, if you will, those are the same fucking people that love what Trump is doing currently.
Dangerous they think the United States is, but they surely understand that they're dealing with a country that's basically a rogue elephant that can't be trusted and is incredibly powerful. So seeing the United States pinned down and in serious trouble in Iran is to both.
I don't. Why do you care if Iran kills? Why do you care about Iran if it kills the global economy? Wait, what? Because I live on this planet? Like I don't live in a separate universe? What? I mean, I want conflict avoidance in general, right? I want conflict avoidance in general. The forces you mentioned, why do they care? What? Who wanted destroyed? Okay, you're a bit confusing, or maybe a bit confused. I'm saying the average person and also even capital owners care if the global markets are on fire, everything's more expensive. There's a possible recession. The problem for the individuals that would have the capabilities of like assassinating the president from within, like the CIA or Mossad, let's say, just throwing some names out there for no particular reason. Well, those are the people that actually are in line with destroying everything as long as they can get their military goal accomplished, as long as they can get their military goal across, which is the destruction of, oh my God, dude, stop. This guy keeps spamming the same shit. Destroying Iran. Okay, in the middle of an interview, my colleague, U.S. Secretary Scott Bessent, is called away after a message in the White House Situation Room. Yeah, we saw this yesterday.
Both Russia and China's interests. Now, in terms of what the Russians and the Chinese are actually doing, there are limits to what they can do in terms of direct intervention. The last thing the Russians want to do, given that they're fighting this major war in Ukraine, is get bogged down in another war in Iran. So they're not going to get directly involved. And the Chinese don't have the power projection capability to do anything significantly to help Iran. They can't get involved directly either.
I agree, but chill with the anti-Semitism.
The Chinese are still helping Iran, and they're providing intelligence. By almost all accounts, the Russians are providing significant intelligence information to the Iranians that they're using for their advantage. It's quite clear that they've helped them with technology. There were all sorts of reports before the war started that the Chinese had sent in air defense missiles to Iran, and they had sent in a radar, a long-range radar that could track stealth aircraft. And that, coupled with the fact that the United States, that Russia is providing China with detailed intelligence information, has really helped the Iranians wage this war against Israel and the Gulf states and the United States military assets in the region. So they're helping for sure. And I think, very importantly, that as time goes by, Russian and Chinese assistance to Iran will grow. I think the problem that Israel faces in terms of destroying Iran as a functioning nation state will only increase with time, because I think the Chinese and the Russians will go to greater lengths in the future to help Iran than they have in the past. And as China in particular develops more power projection capability, and you want to remember China's building a blue water navy, and China's Belt and Road Initiative extends into the Middle East, I think you'll see the Chinese getting more and more involved in the politics of the Middle East and more involved in Iran, and they'll help Iran more than ever. And this will make it increasingly difficult for the United States and Israel to attack Iran, which in my humble opinion is certainly all for the good.
What is this going to do to the projection of U.S. power within the Middle East? These bases, as I pointed out in the introduction, were purportedly set up to protect countries like Qatar and Dubai. The opposite has happened. In fact, there are reports that most of the interceptors that the U.S. has are being shipped to Israel. How is that going to play out?
Well, I think you can tell two very different stories, Chris. First, you can tell the story that you were effectively telling, which is that we have turned these countries into giant magnets for Iranian ballistic missiles and drones because they're joined at the hip with us and because we have all these military installations sprinkled inside of these Gulf states. When a war breaks out with Iran, the Iranians have a powerful incentive to target these Gulf states. Again, they become magnets for Iranian ballistic missiles and drones. And given that story, you would think when the war ends that what the Gulf states will do is put a lot of distance between themselves and the United States and tell the Iranians if there's another.
See, Hasan, magnets, not sponges. You were wrong again. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the proper analysis is to say they've become missiles magnets and not missile sponges.
Conflict, that they're staying out, they're not helping the United States, and they will not let the Americans use the bases on their territory, and maybe even they'll throw those bases out. That's one story you can tell. A different story, which points in exactly the opposite direction, is that when the war is over with, the Gulf states will move even closer to the United States and work closer with the United States to form a defensive shield against Iran, because this war will prove to the Gulf states just how dangerous Iran is. In this second story, Iran, not the United States, is the principal threat. In the first story, it's the United States, not Iran, that is the principal threat. I find it hard to say where the Gulf states will come down on.
I think it's the first story, not the second. I don't think they lean into, judging by what I have heard from the people I have spoken to, there is a likelihood that this is like their enough is enough moment, because they've eaten a lot of shit, right? I mean, Doha being struck by Israel was definitely a moment where a lot of Gulf states were like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Our partnership means nothing. At least with like Chinese partnerships, you get stability as opposed to instability that turns your countries into, as Mersheimer says, missile magnets. So
this one, when the war ends. But I do think there was evidence even before the war started that the Gulf states were moving away from the United States. I think if you look at the Saudis, they had serious doubts. This is before February 28th, as to whether the United States was a reliable ally. As I'm sure you remember.
Wait, to clarify, do you mean the Arab states are done with the U.S.? I think, well, it entirely depends on which way the winds blow here, but I think they don't want to be, I don't think they want to be partnered with the United States anymore. It would be incredibly idiotic for them to continue seeking an arrangement where the United States doesn't offer them any help whatsoever, and also simultaneously will act out Israel's desires, and Israel's desires do mean diminishing the power, the regional power of the Gulf states.
Remember, the Saudis formed a strategic partnership with Pakistan, and Pakistan literally said it would put its nuclear umbrella over Saudi Arabia. And now the Turks are trying to help, or trying to join that Saudi-Pakistani alliance, make it triangular, because the Turks are worried about the Americans as well. The Turks and the Saudis see that the Americans and the Israelis are a tag team. And
yeah, a couple major pivot points was first, America allowing Al-Udeid to be struck, but that was fine. That wasn't that big of a deal. It was symbolic, right? That was from Iran. Then a major, major pivot point for Doha getting struck by Israel. Then, and this sounds really fucking stupid, but I think Mike Huckabee, before this armada, while this armada is forming in the region, Mike Huckabee coming out and saying Israel has a right to do the Greater Israel Project, that also, I think, terrified a bunch of fucking people. And now that now that these countries have, like America's withdrawn from these countries and they're just eating missiles nonstop, I feel like, you know, it's not, you're underselling the Huckabee line, to be honest. I mean, yeah, it's just such an insane thing that he said as the American ambassador to Israel. Witness testimonies from Kharg Island. Trump says all military infrastructure obliterated. Hello, my family lives in Kharg. The sound of explosions was terrifying. More than 10 to 15 explosions at 2 o'clock. Kharg is a small island and its sound spreads everywhere. Even several of our relatives who are not from Kharg but live in the port cities of Bushehr province said the tremors reached here as well. I got this information by phone from my family. Hello? One of the guys just called and said they hid in a way that everything exploded. Apparently they used bunker buses so much that they reported Ganave near Kharg trembled. They say it's hell broken loose. My brother's in Kharg. He says they have been hitting continuously for about 2 hours and the sound of explosions does not stop. He's at the oil site and stayed in the dormitory tonight. It seems, as Trump said, military areas have been hit. So Kharg Island has like a tiny military barrack installation. It's a massive island. I mean, it's a fairly large island. 8,000 people live on it, but it has like a small, military barracks, which I suspect the Iranian government already cleared. There's not a high likelihood that they were just sitting inside of those barracks, as Donald Trump has been actively talking about striking Kharg Island. So I suspect the reason why they're blowing up the military installation on the island, which is again tiny, and I suspect the troops have been dispersed already, is because they are softening it up for a potential invasion. Problem here, once again, is you take Kharg Island, but how do you maintain Kharg Island? You prep it to land troops, right? Israel style. You blow it up ahead of time. You can't blow up the oil infrastructure, though, because then it's fucked. If this is an American campaign, they're not blowing up the oil infrastructure because they want the oil infrastructure, right? So then they land on the island. How do they hold the island? At what point does the Iranian side start also using more than just like small arms with the troops that are on the island? Yeah, by the way, there's 8,000 people that live on the island. There's houses, like there's civilians that live on. Most of the island is civilians. Even if they take on the island, even if they invade the island, how are you going to hold it? Especially if you don't hold the shoreline and you don't have complete air superiority. I don't even know how they actually invade the island without complete air superiority. That's another question. Because there is no naval support. There's no consistent aerial support. Even if they have air cover, that's still risky. Even if they have air cover, that's still risky to land.
So the year was 1988. This future president, Donald Trump, was selling a book called The Art of the Deal. He gave an interview to a British newspaper, at which time you talked about Iran. You said we have to win back respect for America on the world stage, and you had stern words for the Islamic Republic. You said they've been beating us up psychologically, making us look like a bunch of fools. One bullet shot of one of our men or ships, I'd do a number on Kharg Island. I'd go in and I'd take it. Now here in 2026.
Unbelievable.